I was sent to write a reassurance report. That is not a minor thing to admit. The Rathaki Assessment Division does not commission reassurance reports casually. They are expensive in personnel, in transit fuel, in the political capital spent justifying a senior compiler's absence from the institutional calendar for 2 full cycles. When the division director called me into the small consultation room, not the session chamber, the small room, the one without the recording aperture, and told me what the assignment was, I understood that someone above her had decided the forbidden designation had become a liability. Too many junior trade partners asking questions, too many border-adjacent species citing the designation as a reason to avoid entire margin sectors that had nothing to do with human space at all. The legend, the director said, had grown beyond its administrative basis. It needed to be examined, normalized, filed correctly. I was chosen because my record was clean. 41 years of institutional service, 38 of them as a senior compiler. I had never produced a contested finding. I had never required a revision. I was, in the director's words, not someone whose conclusions attracted argument. She meant it as a compliment. I took it as one. I designed the survey framework myself. 17 observation points across a 41-day deployment on a temporary monitoring platform at the outer margin. Not inside the designation boundary, not even close. 3 buffer zones out, well within established transit parameters. The platform was a standard margin way station, used for signals calibration and debris mapping. I had it cleared for single-occupant use and brought my own equipment. The methodology was clean. It had to be. A reassurance report that could be challenged on procedural grounds would be worse than no report at all. I did not intend to give the director or anyone above her a procedural escape route. The report was going to hold. That was the assignment. I will tell you what I expected to find. I have no reason to protect that expectation now. I expected an absence. The designation's administrative history is full of unverifiable loss reports, sensor anomalies, and anecdotal accounts submitted by observers with reputational incentives to exaggerate. I had read all of them in preparation for the survey. I had cataloged the structural weaknesses in each one, single-source accounts, survivorship bias in the witness pool, equipment that predated the current calibration standard by 2 or 3 generations. I had a strong working hypothesis. The forbidden designation had been self-reinforcing for so long that no institutional body had ever gone to the margin with the explicit intention of finding nothing. Everyone who went believed in what they were looking for before they arrived. I would be different. I had a 17-point framework and no prior investment in the outcome. I was the right compiler for this report. That was what I expected. I want to be precise about it, because the precision matters for what I am going to tell you next. 17 observation points, 41 days. I completed every one of them. I will not reproduce the data here. The raw instrument logs are filed with the division under case reference Survey Veth 41, sealed pending my conclusions. The conclusions are what I am attempting to produce now, on the return transit, aboard the survey vessel, on the 14th day of a 22-day journey back to the Institute. I have been attempting to produce them since day 3 of the return. The document has a title, it has a date, it has my compiler's designation in the header field. Below that, it is empty. Here is what the survey found. I will try to say it plainly. Human space does not perform. I do not mean that in the colloquial sense. I mean it in the precise observational sense. Every other designation in the margin survey catalog does something detectable in response to monitoring. They emit, they scan, they move assets. They respond to sustained observation with some countervailing behavior, concealment, escalation, mirroring, inquiry. Even the dead sectors, the abandoned ones, the designations that have been formally closed for 200 years, carry the residue of what they used to do. They have signatures, they have histories that the instruments can read, even when the civilization that made them is gone. Human space, across 41 days of continuous 17-point monitoring from 3 buffer zones out, did none of that. It was active. I could measure the activity. Energy signatures consistent with high-density habitation, transit patterns in the outer shell, the low-frequency communications hum that has been documented in the margin survey catalog since the designation was first filed. It was not dormant. It was not concealing itself. The instruments registered it clearly. It was, as far as the instruments could determine, simply continuing, doing what it does, not for my benefit, not in spite of my observation, not in any detectable relationship to my observation at all. It was as indifferent to my presence as a deep ocean is to a single grain of sediment settling through it. The ocean does not stop being the ocean. The grain does not cause it to notice. I had planned, at observation point 12, to note the absence of any threat response behavior, and flag it as a significant data point supporting the reassurance hypothesis. I had the language drafted before I departed. I had the notation ready. On the morning of day 29, I sat at the instrument console and looked at the 12-hour read. Clean, consistent, exactly what I had predicted across 4 weeks of data. And I could not type the notation. Not because the data was wrong. The data was exactly what I predicted. It was exactly what the reassurance hypothesis required. The absence was there. The absence was perfect. I could not explain why typing the notation felt like the most reckless thing I had ever been asked to do. I stayed at the console for 2 hours. I looked at the data. The data looked like a file I had made up in advance and then confirmed, line by line, which is what a clean survey is supposed to look like. I got up. I went through observation points 13 through 17 in the following 11 days. I completed the schedule. I dismantled the platform equipment, logged the way station as cleared, filed a routine departure notice with the Margin Traffic Coordination Office, and boarded the survey vessel. All of this was correct. All of it was exactly what a 41-year compiler does at the end of a clean survey. On the first night of the return transit, I opened the report document and typed the title. I have not typed anything below it. I have been sitting with this for 14 days now, and I have arrived at what I believe is the only honest statement I can make about what the survey found. It is not a conclusion. It is an observation. I am not certain the distinction matters anymore, but I am a compiler, and distinctions are the only tools I have left. What I observed in 41 days was a civilization that has no need to be frightening. It simply is what it is. It does not warn, it does not threaten, it does not respond, it does not watch back, or if it watches, the watching produces nothing detectable at 3 buffer zones, and the effect on the observer is identical whether the watching is happening or not. The designation does not exist because human space does something to justify it. The designation exists because human space continues, and the continuing is, I am trying to find the word a compiler uses for this, sufficient. It is sufficient. Everything that has ever approached it closely enough to measure it has been reduced, by that continuation, to a set of instrument readings with an empty opposition column, not because human space responded, because it did not have to. A civilization that does not have to respond is not a designation you normalize. It is a designation you inherit and pass forward, and do not examine too closely, because examining it too closely is how you come to sit on a return transit for 14 days, with an empty document, and no way to explain to your director what happened to your conclusions. I am filing one interim notice with the division today. It reads, Survey complete. Instrument data sealed under case reference, Survey VETH 41. Conclusions pending. No projected completion date. The report document will stay open on my console for the remaining 8 days of transit. I do not expect to type anything below the title. I do not expect to explain this to the director in terms she will find administratively satisfying. I am not certain I would find it satisfying either, if I were her. The designation is not over caution. I cannot prove that from the data. The data does not prove anything. That is exactly what I mean. I was asked to write a reassurance report. I want to be precise, at the end, about what I am doing instead. I am filing a document with a title, a date, a compiler's designation, and nothing else. In 41 years I have never done that. I am doing it now because it is the only notation I can make that is not a lie, and because a blank document is, in the end, the more honest record of what the survey found. The survey found human space continuing. That is all I have. That is everything.